Addiction never affects just the addict. It affects all of us. Recovering from addiction and alcoholism is also a life-changing battle for families dealing with a loved one's addiction. Numerous programs support addicts as they reclaim their lives, while their families face their own challenges without the same guidance. You're listening to Voices InCourage with KL Wells, where we transform the lives of the families and loved ones of addicts and alcoholics from surviving to thriving in the midst of chaos. Tune in as we highlight vulnerable stories of families who have addicted relatives and friends and learn how they have dealt with the challenges of isolation, desperation, and shame. If you are seeking ways to live your best life, then we welcome you into this safe space. Be a part of change today with your host, KL Wells.
Out of my own experience, I really wanted to be able to provide for people who were dealing with the full spectrum of addiction and alcoholism, no matter where they enter the journey, because I could not find the resources that I personally needed. So I think the power of story is transformative. And I know in all the stories that I've listened to, the books that I've read, the interviews that I've done, everybody has a different story. They have a different lens that they bring to the table and their own journey. And I really do believe that every time we have an opportunity to hear somebody's story, that it gives us a window in and potentially a different way to frame it for ourselves so that we can do a better job of navigating this ourselves as a loved one. And so that's why I really wanted to talk to both of you, is because come through these two different doors, centered on your son, your husband. And I do believe, at least what I understand, that your story is very powerful. And I think that our membership would really benefit tremendously from what you both bring to the table. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you would just give a little bit of a background in terms of both of your stories, kind of like, when was the first discovery that something was not right? How did this unfold for you first, Joanne, and then you, Sarah?
Okay, well, I only have one son, and I had him at 39. Which is older for most people, most women. And I did not marry his father. And I was married at the time that I had him. And the man that I was married to, he completed suicide when Bart was about 2.5 or 3 years old. So I became a single mom. And I love Bart. I don't know how to tell you. The way I explain it is, I really liked Bart from the time I met him. I didn't have to try to love him. I liked him so much that it just was a mom's love flowing from him. He was a very easy child to be with, and so we traveled a lot. And as he continued to grow, I was intensely working, trying to prove myself at my job, as many women do. And he was a latchkey kid, and he would come home and ride his bike around the neighborhood. And basically, I know now that that's when he was introduced to pot and to beer, etc. And so it kept going through junior high and high school. And I just thought it was a phase.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a phase. And I also thought it's because he doesn't have a father. I need to step it up and get more men involved in his life, which I did, but it didn't change it. It didn't make any difference. And at one point I thought, okay, I really need to find his father, his biological father. And I did. And he didn't live in the United States. He lived in Guam or Saipan. I can't remember now. But anyway, he was, he said, yeah, Mom, I would really like that, because when I go to school, everybody has dads. I don't have a dad. and I would like to meet him. And I said, okay. And I didn't do a lot of research on him. I hired a detective, and they just said, well, there's a reason why he can't live in the United States. And he happened to be a former heroin addict. So that's all I know about that. And I wrote a letter, and he did come over, and he did meet Bart. And I think that caused more problems than anything, because I'm just going to tell you flat out, Sarah and I both, he is one of the biggest narcissists we have ever met in our entire lives.
Yeah.
No, he takes the cake. Napoleon, any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about him. And Bart has kind of he grew up and he got my genes when it comes to chunky puberty, chunky. And he had just married this Japanese woman who was about 20 years younger than him. And he was working out every day at 4:00, and he just looked at Bart and went, wow, you need to lose some weight. Instantly I knew, like, oh, great, but anyway, it just escalated. His drinking and his drug use escalated to the point where I kind of felt in my gut, something's not right. It's more than just developmental stage for a boy. Okay. And I knew that, and it kept going. And then I got him a car, and then he got a DUI, and he started using other substances and got picked up. He ended up going into a juvenile camp. I think he did it on his 17th birthday and his 18th birthday. And I went, wow, son, it's not working for you, is it? It's a bummer, but gosh, there's so many things that, that happened and then just I don't remember exactly when I was introduced to. I tried really hard. I paid for they actually took money from my IRS rebate, to pay for the juvenile hall things. And I paid for when he would get a ticket, and I thought that would work. And I tried everything. Okay. Just like everybody else. And then, I just cut to it. One day he called me. I think he was around, I don't know how old he was. I don't know if he was like early 20s, but he called and he said, Mom, I'm in a parking lot and I'm drinking vodka, and Mama, I'm an alcoholic. And I said, wow. And I had started Al-Anon, and I had learned 3 things, because I really believed that I could keep him from drinking, that I could change. And I actually went to Al-Anon to have them help me stop him drinking.
Right.
Well, that's not what that's about. But when I learned that I didn't cause it, I had to really work through that, and that I couldn't cure it, and that I couldn't control it. Those 3 things were really powerful for me. And, I went, wow. And so when he said that, I said, son, I love you so much, and I concur with you. I just want to know what you're going to do about it, because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a powerful question, Joanne, that a lot of parents are stuck on we need to get them in rehab. We need to fix them. We need. And when you're dealing with an adult at that point, then it takes on a whole different thing than when you're still raising them. And I appreciate your journey, so similar to mine. Because I had Sam older also, and started raising him as a single parent when he was 2, and, on and on and on, and did all the things. And so we could tell the same story just about, which is, wow. Yeah, I appreciate the journey. Absolutely. And so Sarah, when did you come into the picture?
Well, these lovely people lived in Redding, California, and I moved there just to do a school of ministry with a church, and worked at a restaurant, Outback Steakhouse, as a server. And that's where I met Bart, and he is hilarious and super smart and outgoing and full of energy and full of life. And at first he was kind of like another new person, right? And so he was kind of giving me a hard time a little bit, but we became friends. And as I get to know him, and he was it's a similar in this. So I had no experience with alcoholism. I didn't understand it. I didn't. And so similar to Joanne, seeing him as a 24-year-old, he was 24 at the time, going to community college and working at a restaurant. And he loved to skateboard and snowboard and do all these things. And, alcohol and, drugs, more minor, whatever, part of those scenes a lot of times,
Yeah.
A lot of drinking in college, a lot of drinking in restaurant jobs, a lot of drinking in extreme sports. And so it's like Joanne thinking like, oh, he's just drinking like a 24-year-old does, right? And I'm 6 years older than him. And so different periods in our lives in that way. But anyway, just started becoming good friends and started, I was like, man, this guy is really cool, and I'm half Puerto Rican, and my parent, I never learned the language because my dad didn't want to teach me ghetto Spanish, whatever. And then he's going to Guatemala to learn Spanish and like wants to immerse himself. And I'm like, who is this guy? And we just like laughing and having fun. And then found out that he also like, was a Christian or whatever, like went to, church and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, he's cussing, he's drinking, he's doing all this stuff. That one for me, Then I meet this one, Joanne, she comes into dinner and she's like, oh, what's God teaching you? And I was like, really? Like, I was just, but anyway. And so after he had gotten another DUI, and he was like, something has to change. I can't go on like this. And hadn't admitted that yet about the alcoholism. And so he just was like, it's just something I can't do anymore. And started to, try to be better. And so I invited him to church, and he had a girlfriend, by the way, this, really healthy relationship. Terrible. But anyway, so we were just friends, but I said, hey, you should, come. I love it. It's great. And, I'd been hurt by the church before. So this was it's a totally different type of environment, just super like loving. And so anyway, I think he went to Guatemala first, and then we all kind of like dispersed over the summer. So I went back to Vegas, where I had friends, blah, 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 a whole nother story. But we all kind of dispersed and then came back like when the school year started again, because I did the second year of the school. And it was like everyone had broken up with everybody, even like divorces happened, but no, Bart was still with this girl, right? After all. And I was like, seriously? Because now I had a little crush on him, right? And so, but anyway, we ended up just kind of hanging out. And then one night it was a going away party for one of our friends that was leaving. And we ended up talking and I didn't go to a lot of those, but person I really cared about, talking all night long, took him home, and then we just like connected, and then just ended up building a relationship. Like he hadn't talked to the girl in like a month and didn't even know if they were together, but they officially didn't break up. But anyway, so like started hanging out, and he was on his best behavior, and was doing well, and was coming to church and just really having heart changes and really like going, and I didn't live with him. And there was a few times where I picked him up or something and he'd been drinking, or he called me drunk. But again, it's kind of like, well, he's 24, he's in college, like he drinks, like that's just what it's like. So I didn't really put it together. And then finally, one time we were engaged. Now we're engaged. And he like totally fell off the deep end or whatever, like just left. I don't remember what triggered that. I know we had gotten to a fight, which we don't normally do. We'd gotten into an argument about something, but it was like something else bigger than that going on. And he just like completely disappeared and went on like this drinking binge and who knows what else for like a week, right? And then it was at that point that Joanne was like, I need to tell you that Bart is an alcoholic, and it's a disease and, all this stuff. And I was like, okay. And I just still didn't do it. You know what I mean? I wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, well, I know this, this, and that. Like, I was just like, oh, that's terrible. Okay, you know. And then when he came back and just like, I'm so sorry, da 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 da, and then basically still felt total peace about moving forward and marrying him. And so we got married, but see, before that, he had the terrible back injury. He had, he was a big man, you know, he was 6 feet tall and he had really big bones, and he was really strong, but he hit his tailbone when he was on a rope swing in the lake when it was too shallow, and it like really ruptured his disc. So he was in major pain. Well, of course, the doctor put him on opioids.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so even when we were, you know, courting or whatever you call it, engaged, he already was on those, you know, and the doctor, it was Blake Massey, you know, she was saying, you know, oh, you know, it's sorry, it's going to lessen his sex drive, and this is, all these things are going to happen, and it's going to, and I'm like, oh, that sounds wonderful, you know. I'm like, we're just about to get married. And so anyways, so got married, just fully drugged because of that, you know, but mixing and all that stuff. And so basically it wasn't though until we moved to back. So I had bought a condo when I lived in Vegas, and I was living in Redding. We went back there because the market crashed, right? And so to like take care of that. And also he really wanted to make as much money as he could in the service industry. And we were on our way to finishing our degrees and all that sort of thing. And so we went to Vegas, and that's when it's like, oh, this is, it was, we were just talking about this the other day. It was when I found a bottle of vodka hidden in like the underwear drawer. And I was like, why? And I went to him, I was like, why would you hide this in the drawer? Like, I know that you drink and we drink together. I don't drink excessively, but we drink, we'll have beer together, or we'll have a cocktail together. Like, why would you need to hide alcohol from me? Like, I just didn't understand. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. And I think he was starting to make that connection here and there because he watched a documentary about, it was one of the, what are those guys called? It was Steve-O or whatever from Wild Boys or whatever that show was. And he was describing his journey. He's like, oh my gosh, like this kind of looks like me. And he was talking about hiding it too, like from his wife or whatever. And so he was making that connection. But anyway, you know, you're living in Vegas, and just to get to work, you have to, you know, it's all around you. And so, so it just was getting really, really bad. And I was pregnant. I got, you know, was pregnant there, and it was like at the same time, and I wanted a baby, you know, we wanted a baby, but it was like right at the moment where I realized this man is an alcoholic, and then I'm pregnant with his child. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is a lot. And so anyway,
and how long ago was that, Sarah?
That was 2010.
Okay.
Right. Because I ended up losing her at 30 weeks, which was awful due to preeclampsia.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
And so then I almost didn't. So he got into this college in San Diego to finish his degree. And I wanted my master's. I finished my bachelor's. I wanted my master's. So, and then his boss in Vegas got hired to be the general manager of this really nice restaurant in San Diego and offered to give us both jobs out there. So it got really, really bad. Before that, I mean, it was, really, really difficult. And I almost didn't go with him, but I just, again, was praying about it. And Joanne, because of the tools that she got at Al-Anon, had given me, it was just right then, it was the first thing was the lovingly detach, right? And the not, because you feel like if you're not totally in there, that's not loving, but really you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
You have to step back. And the other thing is not engaging with the alcoholic when there are drugs and alcohol on board, right? Because I would try to do that, and it's like, it's completely pointless. So learning those things. And then the other major thing was that, you know, that they don't want to do what they're doing, and they don't feel good about what they're doing. And so the worst thing you can do, instead of saying, which at first is what I was doing, right? I can't believe what you did last night. You embarrassed the heck out of me. Like, so-and-so never wants to see us again. Do you understand that? Like, you just ruined our relationship with that person. Well, he didn't want to do that at all. That's not who he is at all. Bart was super loving and kind and loyal and all those things.
Right.
And when I do that, then it makes him feel worse and makes him wants to drink more, right? So learning those like 3 things: the lovingly detach, do not engage with them when they have alcohol on board, and don't shame them for something they did when they were drunk, because they didn't want to do it and it's going to make them want to drink again, right? So those things helped. And then I had to put my foot down on a few things where, like, I can't live with this, this, and this. Like, these things, like, you gotta, this cannot happen here. Like, I won't do that. Right.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I've got a bunch of questions going through my head. So what was, how long did it take you to kind of absorb and integrate those 3 lessons? That's one question. And then the next question is, what was the first boundary that you really drew?
I mean, I started practicing it immediately because it really made sense. I think the hardest one for me was not engaging when he's drunk, right? Especially if he's coming at you about something.
Sure.
And he wants you to engage with him, right? But you can engage in a different way, right? The not shaming him for something that he has done, that sunk in almost immediately. When I processed it, it made total sense to me. And I was like, okay. And because he really, I could see the remorse. I could see the, like, his struggle with that, like, split personality really is what it felt like.
Yes.
And then as far as lovingly detaching, that takes more practice. I feel like it took more practice. Like, okay, step back, like she said, like, go to bed. You know, we had one car. I'm pregnant. I had a new job, and he's out with the car. I don't know where he is. It's 4 a.m. I have to like to go to sleep and just go to sleep and separate myself and take care of myself and call my friend. That was Kurt, you know, can you come pick me up? Yes, I can. Okay, cool. Good night. And, you know, that takes more practice.
Kathy, I want to interject. I retired when I was 70. And I told Bart and Sarah that the summers were theirs. I would come and take care of Bella. So I was going to Al-Anon, and I was, you know, I had really, as a nurse, I wanted to renew my license, and I did it in substance abuse and alcoholism.
Good for you.
I really didn't know that much about it, but once you understand the physiological basis of the disease of alcoholism, there is something called compassion that comes into the picture. And the compassion that I had for Bart was just huge. So I had lived with them in the summer. And so I would watch Sarah, you know, and watch the interactions. And sometimes he would be playing with Bella on the floor, his little new baby, and he would nod off. And I would just walk over him and go do the dishes and absolutely never say one thing. I didn't count the bottles when I woke up. I didn't, you know, I never asked him the questions, but I did really want to help Sarah. And because she would, oh my gosh, she'd be going to school, working, come home, you know.
This is after we moved to San Diego.
San Diego. And she would say, oh my God, I don't know, Bart, I don't know. I said, Sarah, there's one thing you need to do right now. You need to change your clothes. You need to get something to eat.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about what you want to do with Bart. Bart's got a lot of friends that can come and get him. But you're a mom, you know, and so we would just talk about it, and it made sense to her. But the thing that really made sense to me is that you have to understand the disease.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so important, I think, because it made all the difference in the world to me. And I could tell, I watched his torment. You know, they call it insidious and baffling and cunning. And I think it's evil, you know, but you could see the torment.
Yes.
So, but at the same time, you have to learn. I mean, many times I'd say, you know, Bart, I have to go to the bathroom. And I'd go into the bathroom. I'd be going, okay, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to, change the things I can, and the knowledge to know the difference. And then I come out, and, and one time he said, God, Mom, you really go to the bathroom a lot. I said, yeah, I do. Actually, I a little problem older people have, but
Yeah.
that's what I would be doing in there, is to really letting go and say,
Right.
Joanne, how are you going to take care of this right now? How are you going to take care of yourself in relationship to his disease?
Right. So could you just say that one more time? Because that is so critical for people to grab a hold of and understand, and then really embrace.
The part for me of understanding the disease of alcoholism, and of course the blessing that God gave me to renew my license and really go deeper into the physiology of it, and go, here's what happens with somebody that doesn't have the disease, here's what happens, it does. And that didn't happen overnight. I mean, I really had to take it in, but when I took in the factual information and watched his interaction with this beautiful, incredible woman that he married, that loved him so much, and to watch how hard it was for him to struggle, because he self-loathed. He hated himself for not being in control of it. And I could see the struggle. But once I saw the struggle, then I knew that it was what I had to learn in engaging and not engaging with him, to help him, for me to let go and help him on that journey, whatever it's going to be.
Right, exactly. And so I think, you've said so many things that are critically important. And one of the things that I'm grabbing a hold of is the need to educate ourselves about this disease. It is critically important, because there's so much out there in terms of the shame, the judgment, the misinformation, the moral issues that we lay on this disease. And we would never do this with cancer. We would never do this with lung disease. We would never do this with any other sort of disease. And so getting really clear about that, and because it is a disease and it takes over your brain, we do have this bifurcation of the person that we're dealing with. They are a completely different person when they're in their substance abuse versus who they really truly are. And the vast majority of them, my experience has been, are extraordinary people. So gifted, so heart-centered. I believe that they're here to change the planet. It's just they're dealing with this disease at the same time, and there's I have a whole thing around all that. But the other piece too that I really want to grab a hold of from both of you is this notion of self-care, which I think for a lot of people, we're not trained culturally to take care of ourselves. And so faced with a disease like this, and any other disease, quite frankly, the whole notion of us embracing the fact that we need to put our oxygen masks on first is critically important to be able to navigate this in the way that both of you have spoken about this. So let me ask you both, how was the challenge, or was it easier for you both to take a hold of your own self-care in this process, in this journey with Bart?
Well, I would like to speak really quickly to the education part, because that also was transformative. So I didn't get there yet, right? Because we were still in Vegas. But when we moved to San Diego, and I remember working in room dining, and I was pregnant, and Joanne gave me all this literature about the disease. And like I said, I've said it over and over, I didn't understand anything about it, right? Until this education. And so I'm reading this pamphlet about the family and the alcoholic and all this. And that was the first time for me that it was like a really, because she's telling me, this is a disease, this is a disease. Okay. I'm trying to understand, but it was like this aha moment when I'm reading this pamphlet somebody had written, and it was as if they were sitting in my living room, documenting exactly what was happening in my house. And that was like, it just blew me away when I was like, oh my gosh, this is a disease. Like when it really like hit me, but man, it took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Even knowing who he was and seeing the other side, knowing he didn't want to do that, all that sort of thing. But it was that whole, and then having her explain the physiological part and all of that sort of thing, it really does absolutely help.
Mm-hmm.
And it does give you more compassion. You know, I loved him anyway, but
yeah,
just like all of that was just like completely transformative to helping. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk to self-care. I just want to add about education.
It got really easy. It got easier and easier the more that I learned about it.
Mm-hmm.
But learning about it and having it right in front of your face, seeing it is a beautiful opportunity to put it all in practice, because that's what love and compassion and mercy and grace are all about. Right. Those things are wrapped up and they're powerful. And I want it because Sarah and I, we talk about Bart all the time because he's so powerful. He was so funny. He was so smart. He was so, and he has, I'm here because of the granddaughters. We have a 6-year-old and a almost 10-year-old, and they're beautiful, beautiful girls. And he loved them. And we had an opportunity to talk to a young man just by himself that literally was with his brand new baby and shot up heroin. And that's how Bart died. He died of a heroin overdose. And Sarah and I got to be in this man's presence to say, look, your son loved Bella more than anything. But when you have the disease and it hijacks your brain and it's all you think about, you don't care about the baby or the daughter. And we just looked at him and we had to process that for kind of a long time. But it really, I have to tell you, it was a blessing. It really helped. It's like you had your little baby and you shot up with your baby there. Yeah, I did. I'm an alcoholic and a substance abuse user. Yeah.
And I mean, that story is so emblematic of the hijacking. And people who, I mean, your experience, Sarah, was nothing. And so from the outside, when you see something like that, oh my, you kind of like, what is going on here? And then there's a lot of judgment and, all that kind of heaps on. And so, my hope is that there will be people watching this that, have kind of walked that path you were walking, Sarah, where this wasn't a part of your experience, your life experience up until you married him. And then, man, you're deep in learning what this disease really is all about, and the trial and error. And so Sarah, would you speak to the self-care and the 3 things self-care wise that were like so critically important to you to be able to continue to navigate dealing with Bart's disease?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I'm going to get emotional, I'm super thankful for Joanne, because I feel like honestly, she was like a coach, like a life coach through that for me, who already had the tools that I could call her or be, if she wasn't there, or talk to her and be like, I really need you to pray for me right now. Or I need you, will you do this so I can do that? Because, or what do I do? You know what I mean? So that was, I mean, honestly, part of that in that way of like, I see why sponsors are good things, right? Because even though I didn't have an official sponsor, I feel like with Joanne, she was that for me, helping me. And because she knew him, his whole life too, knowing like, is this just part of the disease? You know what I mean? Like, what is happening here? Yeah. But for me, I think it had to do with sleep, first of all. I mean, because you could easily be up all night wondering where the person is, what's happening. So that was the main thing of like, I remember when Amir came, and I don't think you were there. I think you were up doing something, or it was in the school year, but he was with Amir and he had overdosed in a parking lot or whatever. And they'd taken him to jail, and Amir came back. And
I was there.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
And I was like, And he was like, I'm so sorry, I've got the car and and he's in jail. Da-da-da. I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That's so cool. And I put the keys down and I went in to go to bed. And he was just like, what? No, you didn't hear me. Like and I was like, I know he's in jail. I have to get up in the morning and teach my class at the university.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and go to bed right now. And you're more than welcome to sleep on the couch and stay here if you want, or like you can walk home because he didn't live very far, but I really appreciate it. He's going to be fine. Actually, if he's in jail, it's probably the safest place he can be.
Right.
So like, just how, and he was just like, and that took a long time for me to get there, but I did. I just went back and I cuddled up and I went to sleep and I got up and, oh, there he was in the morning, like back there. You know what I mean?
She had another one too, where I was in bed and Bart was down there fighting with these people at the pool, going crazy. And I went, oh my gosh, where's Sarah? She's got to be up at 5 o'clock. And I looked in the bedroom and she's asleep.
Good for you.
I guess the cops came and all that kind of stuff. But I went, oh my gosh, I think she's getting it.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing is always, and the suspicion thing, that's the hard thing. Cause the lies,
Yes.
always the
Yep.
lies.
Yep.
That I think was the hardest for me for self-care, because if you're trying to figure out if they're lying all the time or seeing who's texting them on their phone, if it's a dealer, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where, that will consume you.
Absolutely.
So that part, I think I struggled with the most, and that was hardest up until he died. Like I had to really, like, who's he talking to? Like, what's going on? Who's he really hanging out with? Like, where is there really drugs hidden somewhere here? At one point he cleaned up and he took me down there and had me throw the stuff away for him. And there was like 17 different places he had hidden all over the garage, and so then it was so hard to not after that be like looking, and that is part of self-care of like,
right.
You have to just, that is part of the disease that you love them through, and that you cannot let yourself get all wrapped up and entangled in the web of deception or whatever that is spun because of the disease. It's a total disease. That guy was the most honest, straightforward guy. I mean, that's one thing that I loved about him.
Right.
That I love about him. Like, you don't have to worry about you don't have to wonder what he's thinking or how he's feeling, or if he's gonna, and yet under the influence, all of a sudden, he doesn't want anyone to know what's really going on. So I think
Absolutely.
sleep, having somebody to talk to about it, and then not allowing yourself to get sucked into the web of suspicion, basically.
Yeah. And that is such a stumbling block for so many people, particularly parents and spouses, is they want to get involved in managing the disease, and it is a failed strategy. Hands down, and it will take you out if you walk down that path, and don't get clear about what's most important for you on your journey in the midst of having a relationship with somebody who has a substance abuse disorder. So thank you. Those 3 things are critically important. And I know that it's really important for our listeners to hear these things. So I want you to shift just a little bit to how long ago did Bart pass?
7 years.
October 11th, 2014.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'd like to, because of the time, I'd like to shift to how you two came together after his passing, to navigate life.
What was our backup plan? You live with an alcoholic, and that's not, I think the most frustrating, I think, part of the whole deal is that he desperately wanted to be healed and went to AA and then went to NA and had a sponsor and did all of that. But then it was the heroin, it was the opioids that led into it, just, and then he cleaned up. He got to a place where finally it was like, this is a natural consequence. It's not even ultimatum. Like, I cannot be in the house with somebody and our child with this happening. And he'd overdosed and almost died another point, and the ambulance came and resuscitation, whatever. And so clean, good, finally doing good, but had a backup plan because she still had her house up in, well, she still does have her house in Reading. She was down helping. I was finishing my master's degree, trying to finish my master's thesis. And that was our backup plan. If something happened when he was making, slipping back, that we would come up to Reading, or even I wanted him to go into a recovery program, and even during that, it was kind of, we had this agreement basically. So when it actually happened, I was now a single mom living in San Diego, and I was pregnant. So he named her Aisha, but yeah, he died on a Saturday. On Wednesday, I had my first ultrasound. So we, I was like, I can't survive down here by myself with a single income as all that. So went up to Reading and had the baby and got a job up there. And then I had applied I always felt like I would, not always, in the school of ministry, really felt called that I needed to go and get my PhD. But then when he passed, I was like, how the heck am I going to do that? And I'd already asked her before, when he was still alive, if she would come and be like granny nanny, because I knew he would be working, and getting a PhD is not a small thing. And so yes, she would come support us there. And so then when I worked that year in Reading at the community college, and there was a tenure track position that came up there, but I just was like torn and felt really like I should apply again anyway for the PhD program. And I applied only for one, which isn't that smart, but that's what I felt led to do, and came and visited, and then got in. And she said, yeah, I'll come help you with the first year. And then we found out there were exams, and then there were more exams. And then after the exams were over, then she's kind of like, well, I kind of like to stay here. And I'm like, well, I'd really like to have you here. So here. And so now we're coming sort of to the end of that. But
yeah. And as you know, Sarah is my daughter-in-law, and mother-in-laws have reputations. And I had said to her, I said, you can move in with me in my little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Reading. And she went, okay. But it's not hard to love Sarah. And she has, we both really, really love Bart. So we have something that's very exceptional. It's kind of like a Ruth and Naomi, kind of thing. And we, so during the whole time that we're grieving, I'd really be grieving, and she'd be happy, and we could hug and cry, and then she'd be down and I could cheer her up. But we always could talk about him and always understand what we were talking about. And not a lot of people have that, right? That shares that. So that really helped us a lot. And and I just wanted to see her dream come true. And so she gave birth to Aisha Mikkel. And Bart had named Aisha. We'd never heard of Aisha before. We said, okay, figure out how to spell it, Miss English teacher. And so, we've just been, that's what we've been doing. We've been working for that goal for her, whether she gets married or doesn't get married, whether, that she can support them with a degree. And she's passionate about teaching. I really, really love her. And I love that she was always so open to accept what I learnred. She never shut it down or tried to barge through it. She just stayed so lovingly open. But when you love somebody, it's you just love them.
Totally. I totally hear you. I think one of the things that's so extraordinary out of your story together is I totally resonate with Joanne, this mama heart love. There is nothing like it. And Sarah, this now. And so despite what's happening with our child, Bart, Sam, whoever, is, the heart of that man. And that's what you see, despite all the stuff that is swirling around. And then to be able to bring that to Sarah, and for the two of you to be able to bond together over your love for Bart, and then your love for each other. And if I can't but think, as you're both speaking, like how present he is right now. I mean, I completely feel his presence in this conversation. And so it's almost as if he's just beyond that veil. And he is right here in the midst of all of this. And it's such we've all learned so much through this journey. And we've learned to access parts of ourselves that we had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And so, wow, I am so touched by both of your abilities to articulate your own journey personally, and then your collective journey, and navigating with Bart, and all the things, and how to maintain a sense of peace and thriving in the midst of the chaos. And I hate that our time is almost up. So, honestly, I would love to continue this conversation, in the next year, if you two are open to it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because I mean, there's more to learn, I believe, from the both of you, in how you have chosen to do this, how you've chosen to take care of yourselves, how you've chosen to build the bond that you both have. And we need more models like you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I want to say thank you so much for what you're doing, and how, like, it's just, everybody learns and grows from stories. And
yes.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always kind of lived from the space of that things show up for a reason. And there are always gifts and lessons embedded in it. And so I just kept leaning into the question, what are the gifts and lessons embedded in this journey with Sam, and how is this meant to serve? And so, our story right now is Sam is in relapse, and he's been dark for a couple weeks now. And so, we're right in the middle of that part of the journey right now. This is probably the 4th or 5th or 6th relapse. But this is the first time he's really gone dark on us. And so to be able to talk to other people, about this, there's such a power, but you need to be very choiceful about who you talk to make sure that they are going to lift you up into that next best version of yourself in the midst of all of this. And I personally believe that it is a continual unfolding, that it never stops.
No.
And certainly because Bart is so present with you, it's just going to continue to unfold. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this episode. We hope this discussion gives you the empowerment you need during these challenging times. Remember, there is always light after darkness. For more inspiring conversations like this one, subscribe to the show at voicesincourage.com/podcast. We encourage you to share with your friends and family going through similar situations, so we can continue to build a strong community of hope and possibility. Start your life-changing journey today. Join our community at voicesincourage.com.